Let's go.
Wednesday afternoon.
Player, and you could argue he was. He was a bit of a luxury because he didn't track back to help with the defence, and I never saw a manager from the sideline telling him to do so because they knew his abilities were up the front or near the front, giving the ball, and he just weaves his way around 3 or 4 players and usually ends up putting the ball into the goal as well. He was a phenomenon, and therefore, in my opinion, and we'll never know, but in my view, if he played in a British team, and I personally am sad he didn't, I wish he had have done, I think he would have been just as special, just as brilliant, even though you might say with the competitive league, he might have got kicked up in the air a bit more. Who knows? You'd like to think refs would protect players like that. But I think his ability would still have shone through because he was so exceptionally talented that it would have to. He would not have become a pedestrian, just another Premier League footballer, if there is such a thing. So sadly, we'll never know. And as far as I know, he never, ever expressed a desire to come and play in the Premier League. Whether who knows, whether he felt it was a bit too tough physically, he didn't want to get broken legs and things, I don't know. Whether he felt he wouldn't shine in view of the competitive nature of it, I don't really think that. But I was never aware that he expressed the wish to come to England in the Premier League, which a lot of other well-known footballers have often let on. They say, yeah, I want to go and play in the Premier League. But of course, there are those that never did. I mean, for example, the used to be the captain of France, then Real Madrid, as Zinedine Zidane.
Yeah.
He never played in our country, did he? And again, I think he would have shone brightly because he was such a magnificent footballer. And there have been others, but we still have seen most of the best of the world's footballers in the Premier League, and it's great. I'm always grateful for that we can, in the Premier League, we can go along and see the very best players in the world. And for me, being quite close to the pitch, which I love, you really feel the atmosphere because you can hear what the players are shouting to each other, and if things are going wrong, you can all of it. You just, and the only thing missing, and I was talking to someone the other day about, if you go to a rugby match, you can get some headphones and you hear what the ref is saying, which I think is brilliant. And I think it would help refs here if we could do the same thing. Put on a pair of headphones and you hear what he's saying to the players, what responses he might get, and so on. I think it would only help. It would really enrich the experience to know how the refs are behaving. I mean, certainly, I don't know if it's next season, but apparently the refs are going to, after a VAR decision, they're going to announce the reasons for that decision to the crowd, a bit like they did in the Euros last year, where there was, again, it may have been actually the last women's World Cup, whereby the refs announced what the decision was. So anything they can do in that direction, I think is good, to give the crowd much more information about how a VAR decision, for example, is made. But just hearing a ref in what he says to the players would be great. It really would be, because you would really get to know the personality of the ref and so on, because they do take a lot of stick, a lot of sometimes very unpleasant abuse. They do an impossible job, let's face it. And of course, if they then get stuff online afterwards, if they even dare look at it, then that's not great at all. So not a job for the faint-hearted. I certainly wouldn't want to be a ref for all those reasons.
Soft family and the ladies, Dr. Gladys and Phantom and Rose. We all have a lovely show every weekday, so join us for a lovely show.
Say hello to Phantom, Dr. Glad.
Announced what the decision was. So anything they can do in that direction, I think is good, to give the crowd much more information about how a VAR decision, for example, is made. But just hearing a ref in what he says to the players would be great. It really would be, because you would really get to know the personality of the ref and so on, because they do take a lot of stick, a lot of sometimes very unpleasant abuse. They do an impossible job, let's face it. And of course, if they then get stuff online afterwards, if they even dare look at it, then that's not great at all. So not a job for the faint-hearted. I certainly wouldn't want to be a ref for all those reasons and more. Would you like to be a referee?
I don't think so. Do you know?
No.
There was one in the news like recently where he was getting death threats.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that. Yeah, and I thought, well, just for doing your job. No, I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, I think that was amongst others. I think the other day that was Michael Oliver from Arsenal. Now Arsenal won that game at the weekend, but he gave a penalty and a red card. Not a penalty. He gave a red card for a foul. Which when I looked at it, I didn't see it on the game. I think I was at football myself, but it was very soft. There was no kind of strength in the foul, which should have had some bearing. Anyway, the red card, he was sent off, and in fact, yesterday or the day before, the red card was overturned because they say no, he shouldn't have been sent off. It was a foul, but it wasn't a red card. Now, for Michael Oliver, it's unusual for him to get that wrong because he's thought to be the top of our referees, and he generally, I think, is pretty good. So that was a bit unusual that they kind of overturned that red card. But yeah, that's still got no excuse. And of course, Arsenal still won the game as it happened. Yeah. But he still got abuse. He still got death threats. As I think this other fellow who has been sacked, David Coote, I think he got some as well. And you wonder why some people do the job, because it's a job, you've got to have a pretty tough hide, if you like, to cope with it. When much of the crowd is singing some abusive things about the ref, it's not comfortable. So I'm always quite surprised that anyone is prepared to do the job. The more so in Saturday or Sunday league teams, pub teams or kids teams. When my lad was younger, he played in it was a weekend, I think it was a Saturday morning league, and subsequently he played in more grown-up leagues. Yeah. But I was co-opted into being an assistant manager of the younger team, and some parents, it wasn't really the football, the managers or assistant managers. Some of the parents on the touchlines were these relatively young kids. It was awful. The abuse they were giving the ref, even the linesman. It's a terrible example to their own kids playing the game. And as I say, given the threats that some of these referees who are doing their best to do a difficult job used to get, I thought, why the hell do they do this? I wouldn't do it. Horrible to be so vilified by some idiot on the touchline who thinks he knows more than the ref does, So, it's difficult.
It's a tough one. Yeah. I was just thinking about just finishing on referees. And you've already touched on it in the other program, in our previous talk show. Now, David Coote. It was in the news again once, where he was talking about possible reasons behind his actions.
Yeah.
And I think, well, nobody mentioned it, so it's not like people mentioned it. So I just think it's a flimsy excuse for trying to get people's sympathy, because nobody mentioned it, nobody knows about it.
Trying to justify it.
Yeah, trying to justify what he did or what he said. I would understand if people knew about it, if it was public knowledge. Then I would kind of understand why it would be, you know, kind of jittery about it. But nobody knew about it, nobody talked about it, nobody mentioned it. And now he's using it as an excuse. But you know, fair play to him if it works for him. But I do have a bit of a sympathy for him, because you know, obviously nobody should have to lose their means of livelihood that way. But it's not acceptable, is it? Because you know, people look up to the referees, don't they? You know, to officiate and to and not to be biased. Because when you're biased, then the integrity kind of wears out a little bit, don't it? Yeah. Well, anyway.
I mean, the thing is, it was yeah. When you think he was very, very critical in bad language in this interview. I don't know why he ever did this interview or who it was with, really, but because it was all leaked. But he was saying pretty horrible things about Klopp and Liverpool, and really, what I think one of his colleagues, someone at the time when I was reading about it, sort of implied that he was trying to be something he wasn't. And I think that person clearly knew what was in the background here, that he was obviously drunk for a start and possibly having cocaine in his system. But he was trying to be the macho man that he knew inside by his confession he wasn't. And one gets the feeling from what he said now that he had a real struggle on there, doing this role, which kind of, you know, in men's football, it is kind of a very tough macho game, isn't it? But yeah, he may become a VAR teacher, a tutor, teaching new people to do the VAR job, because he's an expert on that. And I think that would be quite a good outcome for him.
Absolutely. So this is all we've got time for. Thanks for joining us. You've been watching The Football Referee with myself, Emmy Hikins, and he calls me bruv.
And me, Trevor Gear, and I call him Cuz.
Okay. So it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
Oh, I see. Well, it's gonna take a lot to get.
Safemo and the ladies, Dr. Gladys and Phantom and Rose. We all have a lovely show every weekday. So join us for a lovely show.
Say hello to Phantom, Dr.